Hello everybody, welcome back to another edition of STEM with Mr. C. I am Mr. C, if you didn't know that. And today we're just going to be doing something really cool. Actually, it's going to be a little hot since we have to heat up some water. I know, it's not very funny. But if you all remember our fabulous fruit balloon episode where we mixed lemon juice, I mixed lemon juice, grapefruit juice, vinegar, and baking soda, and we inflated balloons. Some of you used other fruits. Some of you guys used grapes. I thought that was really cool. Oranges. And we just discovered, right? We learned about acids and bases. And we learned how acids and bases react, and they form carbon dioxide, which inflated our balloons. And we also talked about what an acid is, and then we also talked about what a base is, and we're going to talk about more of that. We also introduced the pH scale. So if none of this is familiar to you, you're probably going to want to click up there. And that's going to take you to the fabulous fruit balloons, which is really fun. But if you don't want to do that, we're going to talk about our acids and bases a little more in detail. So for this experiment, oh, by the way, this experiment is just called Making Your Own Litmus Paper, so we don't have to taste acids and bases. That's a long title. We're working on shortening that up a little bit. So for this, you're really just going to need red cabbage. I know this is not a staple in everyone's pantry or refrigerator, but red cabbage is great for testing acids and bases. You're going to need a pot. About a cup of water. Now, if you want to use purified water, filtered water, distilled water, that's going to be best. Tap water is just fine. It's just there's a little more stuff in there. So you're going to need a second little pot or a cup to strain out that liquid. Speaking of straining, you're going to need some sort of strainer, and then some sort of heat source, right? So I've got my little portable stove here. And then to actually make our strips, we're gonna use coffee filters. And you can actually purchase litmus strips if you want, but it's actually a lot of fun to learn that you can actually make your own to test acids and bases. A lot of fun. And then, obviously for parents, this is parental supervision. You're gonna need a knife, because we're gonna be chopping up cabbage. And then obviously I've got a cutting board. I mean, a lot of this stuff seems probably obvious, right? You're not gonna just cut cabbage on the carpet. Probably use a cutting board. Okay, that's it. And since I have everything here, we're just gonna roll right into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put my pot over here, and let's bring it here. And I'm just gonna pour my water in here. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and just start boiling it, okay? So I'm gonna boil that. And while it's doing that, I'm just gonna go ahead and chop up my cabbage, okay? So I'm gonna speed this up. You probably, unless you wanna watch me chop cabbage, I'm not very good at it. But we're just gonna chop it up into nice small pieces. You're gonna need about 2 cups. So I've got, this is obviously liquid measurement, but you can fill this up. You can actually use more if you want. But for reference, 2 cups of cabbage is about half of a head of red cabbage. Okay, so here we go. All right, quick tip here. You really don't need the bottom of this. There's not a lot of this dye in here, so that's why this is red or purple, because it's dye, and it has a wonderful smell too. It has been a while since I've cut cabbage. All right, so I'm gonna go back to it and chop it up. Now, you may be wondering, why do we need to have this if we can just simply, taste an acid and go, oh yeah, that's bitter, that's probably an acid, or hey, that reacts well with a base, so that's an acid and a base. Well, because a lot of these acids you don't really want to taste because they're very, very dangerous. They will burn you. And then the same goes for bases, right? Acids, very strong acids, will burn you. Very strong bases will do the same as well. So we need to have a way to safely test these, but then we also need to know how strong an acid is, right? Vinegar is a relatively weak acid. I know it doesn't seem like that, right? We put in an egg and it dissolved the egg, but there are acids that you could put an egg in these acids and it will dissolve it within 3 minutes. Okay, those are extremely strong acids, and that's not something we want to go around tasting. Okay, so and we also talked about the pH scale. Okay, remember our pH scale. Move it here. There we go. Remember our pH scale. A couple of different ways, right? Per hydrogen. Another way is just say power of hydrogen, okay? So an acid, we can define an acid as something that is willing to give a hydrogen ion, right? It's willing to give that hydrogen because, right, well, that's just what it is. It's just willing to give the hydrogen. So it's also, we also call it proton, okay? Now I've got 2 cups here. I'm actually gonna do the rest of this. So once you do this, just go ahead and pour that in there. And then you're just going to stir it around. Let me use my knife just to, and you're gonna do this for about 15 to 20 minutes, okay? And so what's gonna happen is the red dye is going to mix. It doesn't need to boil, you just need to keep it kind of warm. And the red dye is gonna seep out of the cabbage into the water. And then the longer you let that water boil off, the stronger our red dye or purple dye is gonna be, okay? So we said an acid, right, is something that's willing to give a proton or a hydrogen ion, right? So that's an acid. So acetic acid, vinegar, is willing to give a hydrogen ion. So that's why we call it an acid. The very, very strong acids like battery acid, or there's special acid that can clean or etch concrete. Those are really, really strong, and they are very, very willing to give up a hydrogen ion. Now, the opposite of that is a base. Okay, so our sodium bicarbonate, our baking soda, okay, that is willing to accept or receive. So the stronger an acid is, the more willing it is to give that hydrogen ion. The stronger a base is, the more willing it is to receive a hydrogen ion. Cool. All right, I'm about done here, and I'm just gonna scoop the rest of this in here. There we go. There we go. And then, so this is gonna be really, there we go. That's a lot, okay? I may add a little more water. So half a head, and that's a big head of red cabbage. So that's gonna be a lot. So I'm gonna make sure I stir this up really well. And all my little mess here, I'll make sure and clean it up. So you're just gonna do this for about 15 to 20 minutes. And just stir it around constantly, right? You don't want it to burn, so I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. And you're just gonna stir it, right? 15, 20 minutes. And then when we come back, we're actually gonna strain out the liquid, and we're gonna find out our water is nice and purple. So don't go anywhere, or if you need to, take a little break. But I'm just gonna be here watching water boil and watching my cabbage boil. So I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. Bye. All right, everybody, so it's been about 20 minutes, and if you've never boiled cabbage before, let me just tell you that it's a very interesting, it's a very interesting smell. I haven't, I'm not a big cabbage fan. I don't eat it a lot, so it's, when I do this, it's real special. Anyway, so now I'm gonna turn my heat off, and then I'm just going to strain it. Now you can strain it wherever you want. I've got a different pot here, so I'm just gonna strain it in there. And there's obviously different ways you can do it. I've got a big cup here, but I don't wanna spill everywhere. That's gonna be, right, that's gonna fit nice. I don't wanna spill my red purple dye everywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and tilt this down and you're gonna get a look at how we're doing this. So I've turned my stove off and now all we wanna do, you don't have to pour it all. I mean, try and keep as much of the cabbage in there as you can, but look at this nice purple liquid. Okay, so I'm already spilling a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is obviously try and not spill. I'm gonna put a little cloth under here. We wanna capture as much of that purpley juice as we possibly can, because that's the stuff we need. That's the stuff we need. And so I may just have to pour it quickly. There we go. Nice. Okay, a little bit goes out. And then something else you can do if you really want to maximize that, you can start squishing, start pressing all that down, right? So I'm pressing that cabbage down, getting the rest of that juice. Ooh, yeah, cabbage smell right in my face. That's, that is special right there. Yeah, here we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the spoon to kind of hold a lot of this back. I don't really care if it gets in there. It's just kind of a pain. And now it's gonna get all over me. So that's okay. And that's a good amount. I got a good amount of liquid there. Yeah, I got pretty much all of it. And so I'm gonna get rid of this. And then I'm just gonna push it down. And that's it, right? So now I'm gonna push this down, strain it out, and I'm gonna pour it in this cup so you guys can actually see it. I know it's not very terribly efficient pouring this into 2 different cups, but I'm sure you guys have stuff at home that will work a lot better. There we go. And that, oh yeah, that's perfect. Oh, beautiful. All right, I'm gonna put this in here. And now let's see what we have. So here is this nice, oh, wow, look at that. Yes, that is exactly what we want. Oh, look at that, beautiful purple. That is really good. And so I ended up adding like an extra cup of water because I had so much cabbage. You don't want to add a lot of water because really we want to take that water that's in the cabbage. It's got a lot of cabbage. The water, cabbage has a lot of water. You know what I meant. And so we just want a little bit of that water just so it's not burning. So use as little water as you can, and then we want to heat it up for 20 minutes because we're really just getting all of that nice purple dye out of here. That's perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna let this cool just a little bit, and then we're gonna come back and then we will take our scissors and we're just gonna cut little strips and we're gonna dunk them in there and make our litmus paper. So don't go anywhere. Let this cool down for about 5-10 minutes, and then we will come back right with you. English is hard for me today. That's okay. Science is not. Sometimes English is hard for me. So appreciate your all understanding. All right, we'll be right back. All right, so I've got my coffee filters here, and really we're just gonna make rectangular strips. However you want to do it. So I've got a coffee filter here. These are kind of interesting. They have measurements on there. That's great. I don't really need those, but kind of cool nonetheless. So I'm just gonna make a little strip here. The traditional litmus strips aren't terribly big, not very wide, but for us, it's gonna help to really see. So there's a good strip right there. And all we're gonna do is, since the coffee filter is doubled, let's go ahead and, so I actually just made, well, I just need to cut that right there. And then I'll have, just like that, perfect. There we go, just like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing. So you can make as many as you want. So I've got quite a few coffee filters. So I'm probably gonna make, I don't know, it depends on how much stuff we wanna test. And we're gonna do our testing in our next episode, right? So this is just showing you how to make testing strips so we can safely test acids and bases, because you can't go around tasting all of them. That would not be good, especially with our stronger acids and bases. That could really hurt us. There we go. And just do that, right? Just make some strips and cut them out. I'm gonna make a couple more and then I'm gonna show you what we do next. All right, boom. So there we go. And now all we have to do is really just dunk them in here, right? We're just gonna let them sit. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful, right? Look at that. Dunk them in. That's gonna be, like this is really concentrated and it's gonna be awesome. I'm really looking forward to this. Okay, gonna dip that in there. Okay, and now all we have to do, once you dip your litmus strip in there and it's nice and purple, we need to let it dry. Okay, so you can just let it sit out on the counter. You can let it sit in the sun for a little bit. But once it dries, it's gonna get nice and crispy, like rigid, not crispy, like it's gonna break. But once it's crispy, I keep using that word, you know what I mean. We're gonna be able to use this, okay? So go ahead and dip your strips in there, and I'm going to find a place to put this. There we go. And I'm just gonna put my strips right here and just dip the rest of them in, as many as you want. Dip them in there. And the cool thing about coffee filters, I like them, they're very, very absorbent. And they work really well as litmus paper, litmus strips. There's blotting paper you can buy on Amazon. If any of you happen to have that, great. But for what we're doing, using a nice coffee filter, really absorbent coffee filter, works just as well. Okay, so I made a couple of the 3 there. I'm gonna do the rest of these. You don't need to see me dip them in there. But that's the end of our episode here. We took cabbage, chopped it up. You could also, as I said in my little caption there, you can also blend it if you want. If you have a blender and you don't want to chop it up into like kind of hunks, throw it in a blender, and it'll do the same thing, right? Put it in a pot, a little bit of water, heat it up, and do the same thing without chopping it and making a mess. And then we took the water, about 20 minutes later, we have this beautiful...
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Well, Siri, I wasn't talking to you, so she's always like interrupting me. It's crazy. So then we have this beautiful purple water here that we dip our litmus strips in, which is our coffee filter, and then it stains them a nice purple, and then we let them dry. So our next episode, we're gonna test a couple things, right? A couple things that we know, right? We know vinegar, we know lemon juice, we know baking soda. We're gonna test those things. We know water. Those are 4 things we're gonna test. And then I'm gonna have some mystery liquids that we are going to test. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Go around the house with your parents' permission and test certain things, right? So we're gonna do that next episode. So you don't wanna miss that one. So don't throw these away. Keep your liquid if you want. If you're done with it, once you've dipped all your strips in there, you can just go ahead and throw them away, you're fine. Okay, I'll see you guys next time for some more Stand with Mr. C. Bye.